introduction. And from now on, I do have the honor, first of all, to introduce you to the band who you'll be waiting for now, which is Chvrches from Scotland. Please welcome on stage with me Lauren Maybury, Ian Cook, and Martin Doherty. Hi, Martin. Hi, nice to meet you. Hi, Lauren. Hi. Welcome to the Apple Store.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So it's not your first day in Germany of the tour. You've been to Munich yesterday, I think Cologne the day before.
That's right, yeah.
How was that?
Actually, Cologne was one of my favourite shows of the year, I would say. It's pretty crazy.
Why?
Just audience reaction, the venue is great, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Pretty much different playing shows, the audience different here to Scotland and England?
I think it kind of varies where you go, like different audiences react in different ways to shows, and yeah, I think the German crowd is a really special one for us. It's good.
And you have a special crowd here, not for the concert, but only for seeing you now. Lauren, I read you do speak some words German, is that true?
I speak a bit, but I learned it at school, so it's mainly phrases like, where is the train station? At the weekend, I went for a Startbummel and things like that, which is not helpful. So I don't know any technical musical terms or any lingo that would relate to that, so it's not that helpful.
Actually, you've worked out how to say, I speak a little German, but it's really bad on stage.
Yeah, but that's
that seems to go
helpful,
down
because
well.
you can then apologize in advance rather than just speaking English automatically, because I think that's a bit rude. So
Lauren actually speaks a lot better German than she lets on.
Yeah.
Just saying.
If people speak slowly to me, then I can understand, but if they're going like really fast with like Berlin slang, I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying.
Actually, one time Lauren fooled a German taxi driver into thinking that she was German, and he started shouting at us because we had asked for a really short fare.
Yeah, we
He just started
realize.
shouting at Lauren in German.
We were in a hotel, and the lady at the desk was like, oh yeah, that's quite far, you should get a cab. So we got in and gave the instructions, and then then we got told off. I was like, I don't know quite what he's saying, but I think we should get out. It was the GSL, like, get back out, it's embarrassing. So, never mind.
Okay, but you do not prepare special greetings for every city in German or in wherever you play?
No, well, we try, like, like when we're playing a lot of summer festivals in different places, Google Translate helps, because then you can get basic phrases, but then sometimes it translates everything really literally, and what you're saying makes no sense. But I think, you could be like, I don't speak this language, and this is what I think I was supposed to be saying. Yeah. There was only one time where I think I tried to speak Flemish, and it just...
Dead.
I think I must have really mispronounced everything. And then when I was like, because I tried to say like, good evening, this is where we're from, and I was like, that didn't work. So I'll just go for the I don't speak Flemish phrase, and they were like, oh, good.
Oh, anyway, you don't have to speak German fluent, because you're from Scotland, and you just recorded an album, The Bones of What You Believe, which came out in August, I think, here in Germany, or September. September, okay. Yeah, that was a pretty rapid career, if I could say so. I think The Lies, your first single, came out in sometimes early 2012.
May 2012.
Yeah, May 2012. And you had the Recover EP.
Yeah.
And from there on, everything started, and the hype started, and everyone was saying, like, this is one of the bands you need to hear in 2013. So after all those months with all the hype, and now your record finally putting out, how does it feel? Do you now feel like more pressure because you need to fulfill the expectations now, or do you feel like relief, saying, well, it's out, everything's cool now?
I think we feel quite relieved that after all those months of working on it, that we finally managed to get it complete and out, and so far it seems that people don't hate it, so that's a good thing. But yeah, it's funny, a lot of people always ask us about the pressure, how do you feel about the pressure of this and that? I think we've managed to be quite good in shielding ourselves from that so far, and just like concentrating on the work that needs to be done, whether making the album or like being a better live band, or it hasn't really impacted on us so far, which I'm really glad to say.
Yeah, I mean, hype's a funny word, isn't it? Like, I don't know if we really subscribe to that idea. It's like Ian's saying, all that we've done for the last 9 months, the last year, whatever, is stay and maintain focus on what we were doing in the day-to-day of being the band, and that's what is important. I think the best thing about having the album out now is that finally we're able to be judged on a full-length record, which is how I feel all bands should be judged ultimately. And we are really, I mean, we're blown away by the way that we've come to people's attention, but it's been on a song-by-song basis. And it's very difficult for people to get an idea of who a band is, you know, when one song is everything that you know about the band, and then 2 songs, and then 3 songs. But getting the full album out now, it means that anyone that listens to our band can fully understand where we're coming from and what we're about. I think that's my favourite thing about it.
So before the album came out, you never felt misunderstood?
Not entirely, no, but that's not exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, just not fully represented.
Yeah.
It's like, because obviously if you're based on the so-called singles that you put out, you know, you're obviously not going to release the kind of long, dark, brooding songs on the album, so people don't see that side of the band. They think you're like an upbeat kind of pop radio band or whatever, and that's not the full picture. That's some of what we do, yeah, sure, but it's not the full picture.
If I got you right, you don't like the word hype, but what I read in another interview of you guys was some of you said this is a band made on the internet, so you agreed upon it more or less. So, but I was thinking, isn't any band who's having kind of big success nowadays kind of an internet band, because that's where you find your audience, your fans?
I think probably what we meant by that was that for us, we existed on the internet before we existed in the real world, if that makes sense. Whereas like all other bands I've been in prior to this, like you rehearse the songs, you gig the songs, you save up, you record the record, and then, you know, once, like while you're doing the gigging, you use the social networks. Whereas we recorded a lot of stuff and then we put things online, and then we just kind of existed in cyberspace for a long time before we started playing shows. But I think the internet's been like an undeniably valuable tool for us, and we still use it to, like, just daily, just to kind of communicate with people and make things feel a bit more personal than just like updates from the PRHQ, and that's not really something we want to do. So
well, it's about trying to show some level of personality as well, you know, because these days it's important when there's lines of communication that are so open and clear, like, you know, all the biggest social networking sites that we all use, that you show a bit of yourself on in that respect. You know, maybe it's a silly picture, maybe it's, you know, a song that you like that you heard that day. But that's something that we all respond to when we read the Twitter accounts of the bands that we love, for example. You know, I think that's important.
Plus, it's allowed Martin to perfect the art of the selfie on Twitter.
yes.
I'll tell you something, it's quite the thing.
What's German for selfie?
There is no German word. Is there a German word for selfie?
Anyone? No?
When
Not
you do
really.
the
Not everybody
MySpace
understands.
Oh, that's
pic.
good.
I remember that.
I'm at,
Everybody's
I'm
taken one.
yeah, I'm at a pretty high level with the selfies right now.
You have time to learn. Yeah. Let's.
It's all about the duck pout, you see.
You have to be in your bathroom to do that.
And it always has to be
Well,
from above. You never take them
Yeah.
from other angles. I
Well,
don't know.
They're much
like,
more flattering from above, I think.
See-
You don't want a double
is that
chin
not
thing going on.
because that was what happened with like MySpace and stuff?
Yeah.
Like girls would take them from
And
up
it's still
above.
flattering
exists, but not on
Yeah.
MySpace, now
Yeah.
on Instagram or
See,
wherever.
you've kind of
And now it's everywhere.
you've opened a can of worms here, because the mirror selfie is a much different discipline to the standard selfie. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort.
The other day, Martin was trying to make an internet joke about the Kim Kardashian bottom selfie that she had done, but then because you were trying to get the right
Coming
photo
home
for
now.
get the right photo for your joke, you were like taking another picture of my ass, taking another picture of my ass. I was like, I don't really want to, and I'm like, there you go, and you were like, no, that's not right, that's not right,
How
and
can
eventually you did it yourself.
How can I
so-
represent myself in the most Kim Kardashian-esque way?
Yeah, you were like, it's not the right angle, and I was like, I've got other stuff to do right now. I'm not taking any more pictures of your ass. I'm sorry.
Do
But you
something
worked
with
it out in the end.
competition. Once you feel like you don't have the audience you need, you want to, because then you can spread out, because everybody's following Kim Kardashian.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
But
well.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's take a look back for a moment, because you don't have like a 10-year span of a career. Right now you're a young band, you're a newcomer still. In a couple of sentences, how how did you guys meet? How did the band came to be? Because, for example, I think you, Ian, you played in Aragon before.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a big, or at least not a small step from post-rock to synthy pop, more or less.
I mean, Ian and I have known each other for about 10 years. We've always been close friends, and had always talked about doing something together initially, and it was usually just kind of drunken talk. Let's make a record. Let's get in the studio. And I was touring with the Twilight Sad for 4 years. Ian was off doing his thing, and eventually the kind of schedule was aligned, and we got into the studio, and we worked on maybe just 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah, a couple of sessions.
Immediately starting to think about the potential for having a different counter vocal, like a call and response type thing, like, I guess Human League type vibe, and then Ian had played me demos that he'd done with Lauren, and when I heard her voice, I thought it was alright.
I was going to swear at you with my hands there, but then I realised there's cameras there.
No, that's, I was pretty blown away when I heard her singing for the first time, and we invited her into the studio, and pretty quickly we realised that she had a lot to offer as an artist and as a writer, as well as having a really special voice as we heard it. And we scrapped everything that we'd been doing up to that point, started writing songs that became this record. And that took about 11 months, something like that.
Round about that. That's the short version of the story.
Yeah. But when you started and you recorded the first songs and you recognized, well, it works out pretty fine. You didn't have any master plan in the back saying, well, this has to be an album next year, and we want to be what you are now, for example.
No, I don't think so. I think in the same way as when you start any band, you're like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we finished the record? Wouldn't it be cool if we got to tour? But beyond that, there was no evil genius master plan, and we didn't have a label at that time, and we didn't have publishing or anything like that. So it was just 3 people in a room writing songs. And I think the fact that, kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about the hype stuff, that was useful for us as far as it helped people hear about our band, which is a great thing. But I think it was also helpful to us that we'd been writing for months before anybody had heard of the band anyway. So I think any perceived pressure that would have arisen from that wasn't felt quite so much, because we had a certain bulk of the work we'd already done. So we kind of knew where we wanted to go with it and what we wanted to do. So it's just a case of not reading about yourself on the internet and keeping doing your work.
I think it would have been kind of a different story if we only had Say Lies at that time, and we'd put that song and had that reaction. And I mean, we've all seen it before happen to bands, and then suddenly you're reacting to what everyone's saying about you, rather than being confident about where you are and where you were at. And I think that might have changed things. So I'll always be glad that we did all that work. I mean, we worked for months on songs before anyone heard a note. That was, if there was any kind of element, any planned element, it would have been, I would agree that we deliberately didn't let anyone hear anything until we were totally satisfied. And anyone that asks me about the band or how maybe they could follow a similar trajectory, that's what I say to them. Just keep it as tight as possible until you're totally satisfied.
And now that the product, no, I don't want to say product, now the record is...
The art,
excuse me. Now that the artist is finished and recorded and put out, I just quoted press saying, well, that's the sound of 2013 you need to hear. Do you agree? Do you feel like, well, this is a very modern, recent sound we put out? Or is it, because I read you're a big fan of the 80s, or is it like one of the 80s records you never heard, you wanted to hear?
I don't think we're a band that particularly follow kind of little trends and cycles in contemporary music. I think we draw influence certainly from a lot of 80s music, certainly from a lot of modern hip-hop and R&B stuff. And I think we draw influence from a lot of different places, and I think that's what kind of sets our music apart, maybe, from a lot of the stuff that's current and maybe a little bit more kind of transitory, I hope, anyway. But, I guess it's not for us to say if it's like the sound of 2013 or whatever. We're just trying to write the best songs that we can, and glad that people are responding to them.
I mean, there's no denying that there's a nostalgic element in what we do, but every day in the studio when we're working, we try to explore the most modern techniques, you know, try and twist those sounds in absolutely the most modern way possible. And then, of course, there's an element of your own personality that comes into that sort of thing. I would be sad if people considered us a purely retro band, you know, just a nostalgic retro entity. Without, you know, there's no denying that there's a big element of what we do, or an element of what we do, but I think there's more to us than that.
Do you have certain idols where you think now, well, yeah, we can hear them in our music? For example, when I listened to the song "The Mother We Share," that really reminded me of Kate Bush song "Hounds of Love" at the beginning. Or the cover of the Future Heads of the same song.
Yeah, we had to do
right, the vocal samples.
Don't say that.
I didn't get that.
We had to do an interview about one of our favourite albums the other day, and we chose "Hounds of Love." So that's it's obviously coming through in some way, you know, if you're spotting it. Good.
I think we take a lot of influence from the drum sounds on that album, the tom sounds, like the heavily processed tom drum sounds, you know, with the big gated reverbs. That's kind of all
Bush.
Yeah, from Kate Bush. That's sort of all over the album. It's kind of a nod to that, I guess.
Okay. Any other idols you like to mention? Because probably your band wouldn't exist without those musicians.
I mean, I guess you can probably, if you listen closely, you can hear the Cure influences on there. You can hear some Depeche Mode. The song "Science and Visions" is a little bit John Carpenter, a little bit Giorgio Moroder. Trying to think what else. Michael Jackson and like Prince and songs like "Gun," stuff like that.
Before we go on talking about other musicians, let's talk about your songs, or especially the names of the songs. You have they call it like "We Sing," "Under the Sky," and "Lungs," and "By the Throat." So just reading those names sounds like could be kind of a concept record about like swimming and breathing, something like that. Did you ever had something like images in mind?
Somebody mentioned that to us recently, and it's just totally something that never occurred to us. So there wasn't like a theme or a concept that we were doing. Because I guess in my head, neither "We Sink" or "Under the Tide" is actually about swimming. But I guess it's just like, must have just been the kind of lyrics that we were writing when we were putting the record together. I also need to stop writing about any kind of body parts, because that's all happens a lot.
Maybe it's a signature thing, it's okay.
I don't know.
I think,
Didn't really think about it until we put the record together and we were listening to like the final selection of songs, and I was like, oh.
I don't think it's uncommon that when somebody's writing, you know, lyrics for an album, that you don't get up every day and say, okay, this song has to be about X, Y, Z. But when you get to the end of a body of work and you take a step back from it, you realise, well, this is where I was at lyrically. You
Plus,
know,
I suppose
over
if
the
they were
course
all,
of the album.
if they're all written during the same kind of time period. I don't know, maybe psychologists would have a field day with that, but I don't know what it means myself. So.
But do you agree that within not only the titles of the songs but also the lyrics, there's a slight certain kind of fear within it?
Do you want to lie on the couch?
Yeah, like recline. How does it make you feel?
No, well, not say fear, but there's the line in "We Sing," "I'll be a thorn in your side till you die." And I was wondering, that is not fear, but I was wondering how can one sing such cruel lines over such uplifting music in that song, to me.
Well, but then I think that maybe that's the interesting dichotomy for us, is that there seems to be the strange assumption that if you make music that sounds like, if it's upbeat or if it seems like it should be quite shiny, then you have to write lyrics that go along with that, and you have to produce the songs in the way that would go along with that. But surely, like, conflict is the thing that's interesting. So I don't think we ever feel like we need to change the way we put together lyrics because we're in a quote poppy band now. Like, I don't think that's something we want to do, and hopefully that's what makes the music interesting. So
I think even more than that, like, it affords when there's music that has a lightness to it, it affords the opportunity to push things a little further than you would ordinarily, and that's something that we talk about every day in the production and the sounds. When something is just a bit too sweet to our ears, then we'll go at it, whether it's with new lyrical ideas or twisted production ideas, you know,
Yeah.
like more aggressive sounds, just to bring balance. Ian said it was like cooking once. Just a bit of this, a bit of that.
It's entirely a taste thing. It's like if we were writing music that sounded like really sort of radio ready or whatever, and then the lyrics were like super sweet, la la, I love you, like we'd hate that. We wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do that.
I think it's a personal preference thing, and I think if somebody turned around to me and was like, "You need to write songs about going into club and getting crunked or whatever," and that's fine. Like I totally love, like, you know, there's nothing better than a great ridiculous pop record. But I think that in terms of like spending, like, this is my job now, and this is what I do, and this is what we have to like create together. I think that would be quite depressing for me to have to get up every day and write songs about how. Just, I don't know.
Maybe we should just
Maybe record
flip
2.
it.
Maybe
I've
record
had
2
a
will be
brilliant idea for album 2. Right, here we go.
Don't, somebody will copy it.
No, it's cool. We've got this. It's a drone record, full-on drone album, but
Really
it's
pop
only got
lyrics.
lyrics about
Yeah.
raising your hands in the club, drinking. Suddenly, I'm back at someone's house that I
Yeah.
don't know, and then
And you didn't know
again,
how it happened, and it was totally crazy, but
it was a crazy night. I
Let's
feel a
do it
little
again
bit,
next
something,
weekend.
there's
Looking
something
forward
in
to
your
hearing that
eyes,
you know.
and it feels like flying. That
But-
always seems to be like a line that should come out.
Nice.
Yes, write this
Ultimately-
down. This is good. Don't
ultimately-
take it.
It's got to be start with. So I walked into the club and then suddenly I had my hands in the air. Whoa!
And then you would be
I didn't
obviously
know
there.
why.
You would be there with your guy friends, and I'd be there with my girlfriends,
Yeah.
and that's how we would write it. But not there's anything wrong with these kind of tunes, because you know, there's a time and place. But I think in terms of like something that we would want to make, probably not.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong
Anyway,
with those songs.
you
by
heard
the
it
way.
here first.
Many of my favourite songs involve uncontrollably raising your hands in the air.
Apart from that music, which we were all excited to hear one day, I think.
Thanks.
And your own songs. You did a lot of cover songs recently. You even managed to do kind of a lullaby out of Killing in the Name of, what I heard. You
Oh,
or-
that's-
Oh, yeah,
no, that's
that's
not
not.
Chvrches.
That's not us. There's
No,
the-
but you sang it.
yeah, I did it like 2010 with my other
It's
band.
that old, okay.
Yeah, I think I don't know what happened. Someone figured out how to use the internet, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Chvrches did a cover of this Rage Against the Machine song," but it had been on the internet for ages, and no one had picked it up. But we just did it for like a charity compilation, so
You're
that
gonna-
wasn't.
You're
us.
going to mention Game of Thrones, Fabian, aren't you?
Of course, if I wanted to. No, we don't need to. But you did film music once. You could go back to it if you feel like doing Game of Thrones covers or whatever.
Be great, yeah, sure.
You know,
Okay.
Game
You
of
could do-
Thrones, or
Yeah.
what happened with us in Game of Thrones, is a cautionary tale. It's a fantastic show. It's one of my favourites, in all honesty. But you know, just think twice before you push that upload button on YouTube. Might get a little
thought
bit
it
out
was
of control.
But you
Funny.
covered different art. You covered Prince and Haim and Whitney Houston,
Mhm.
so you
Mhm.
could cover Game of Thrones as well.
You know,
You
so
don't care. Anyway, before we open up the round, to have some questions from the audience. You're playing the Postbahnhof tonight.
we are. I'm
Yeah.
very excited about it.
Anything that the fans should expect that they couldn't expect if they saw you in Munich yesterday or Cologne?
Well, we used to do Prince live, but we don't do that anymore. We retired that cover at First Avenue, Minneapolis, where it made sense to retire it. But now we sometimes do Whitney, if you know we've
The mood's
really
right.
enjoyed the show and the mood is right, and people look like they're up for a bit of dancing.
Okay.
So maybe we do that.
Yeah. And you're coming back on tour in March 2014, I guess.
Yeah.
Apart from that, any other plans for next year? New songs, new records? I mean, I think this year you already supported Depeche Mode, so
Mm.
with all due respect, can't get any bigger, can it?
Well,
That's as big as it
Yeah.
gets.
yeah, I remember standing on stage at one of those shows, or just coming off stage and realizing, wow, it kind of is downhill from here, no matter how well it goes. But yeah, that was an unbelievable opportunity. They're one of our favourite bands and obvious kind of primary influences. I think what they did with song-based electronic music was a huge source of inspiration.
Yeah.
And that was some of the earliest stuff that when I was, learning how to write songs and understanding synthesizers, that Violator especially was one of the most important records for me. So
It's
that was a big
incredible
deal.
album. But yeah, in terms of next year, I guess we're going to play a bunch more shows and try and get to places that we haven't been on this kind of part of the album campaign. and just like try and find as much time in between all of that to write new material. I mean, hopefully we'll put an EP out at some point, but we just need to get back to writing, you know, back to the basement in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Lauren, Martin, Ian, thanks so far for that one.
Thank you.
We open up the stage, not the stage, but the round now for some questions from the audience. So, are there any questions? If
There's
one of you
somebody.
guys, yeah, there's a question.
What is a better contemporary document of you, a concert or the album?
Oh, that's a very
Good question.
I feel like you need both to fully understand the band. Like,
I mean, he's not just saying that because he wants you to buy
and I'm not
both.
saying that yet.
Buy our tickets.
You know, things I feel in our bands translate differently live, although we stick a lot to the way that the album is kind of sequenced and written. We play as many instruments as possible live, without disrespecting people who use like complete playback shows. That would never be the kind of thing that we would get involved with, because we all come from a proper sort of live music background, and when we feel like when people pay to see a show, that they should get a complete show, you know, like proper sweaty rock show on keyboards. So that's what you get when you see our band live. But
Except
you know,
sweating on keyboards is a health hazard.
it is, you
Makes the
could be
keys all
electrocuted.
slippery.
But I mean, I guess the album is how these songs originally came out and how they were originally intended. So I think you need a bit of both to fully understand us.
Thank
I guess that totally sounds like, oh, come to my gig and buy my album so we
It
get
does
more
a wee
money.
bit, yeah.
Buy one for
Look,
your
we're
pal as
so
well.
complex. Well, we're not really that complex, no.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? We do have two persons here with a microphone. Just raise your hand. There in the back.
Oh,
Hi guys.
Hi there. All the way
Question.
back there.
I'm sure you're using Apple stuff and stuff like that. So my question is, what kind of software do you use to do music?
well, we write all of our music on a program called Nuendo by Germany's own Steinberg.
Okay, I know.
And live, we perform using Ableton Live.
Okay, you're using also expanders or all plug-in stuff?
We use do you mean outboard equipment, or do you mean the type of software that we use?
No, some hardware stuff,
Oh yeah, I mean
like Roland, GD and stuff like that.
I mean, we use some, in terms of synthesizers, we use almost entirely hardware. That's kind of part of what we're about, you know, like actually finding these instruments, the original instruments. And whilst I have software instruments are so useful and amazing for sketching, I don't feel like they quite top the sound of the real thing, you know. So
Feels like they're getting better, but
they're improving all the time, and I use them, you know, whenever I'm sketching something and coming up with an idea. Software instrument is a phenomenal tool, but if you have the real thing at your disposal, then it can just bring that extra bit of character. And of course, you know, you're less inclined to just quantize everything, and that's a massive part of what we're about. We're about recording things live and having things as loose and as rough as possible.
Okay, thank you for the information.
No worries.
Thanks for the question. I saw another hand up here,
Down here.
second line. Can you hold on for a second? We do have microphones. Thank you.
You just mentioned like Kate Bush or Michael Jackson as your idols. Are there any contemporary bands you are listening to or you like or adore or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we listen to a lot of contemporary music. I think that's where we all, in a lot of ways, we all kind of split off and do our own thing, and each person kind of brings bands that they enjoy to the mix, and there's lots of stuff that we agree on. I think that Magical Clouds album is probably one of my records of the year. I'm a big Drake fan, I have to admit it.
You
but
don't have to
yeah,
apologize for
hands
that.
up, yeah.
That's, yeah.
You know, maybe I don't speak for everyone in the group when I talk about that, but I feel like from a production standpoint, I think what he's done with the new record especially is incredible, because it's not full of like big radio hit choruses. It's a lot of it is deeply weird and very interesting from a production standpoint, and very quiet and understated high command of melody, which is something that I really appreciate.
But yeah. Any Any other bands or
Oh.
any other?
I don't know. I guess I probably listen to more kind of. I think I've kind of got back into rock bands and singer-songwriter stuff. So I guess James Blake or Speedy Ortiz or Waxahachie or something like that is probably what I would be more listening to at the moment.
My album of the year so far is the debut album by Factory Floor on DFA Records. Love that. Really excited about the new Arcade Fire album as well. So, don't know. I hope it's great. Just hope.
Hope it takes its time.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. It's Arcade Fire, so.
Well,
probably
you've heard it, haven't you?
I've heard it, and it takes its time. Right now, it's not Neon Bible of the Suburbs, but probably it will be.
It's a grower, then, is what you're saying.
I hope so. Yeah. I saw another hand up there on the right side. You got the microphone.
Hi. The first stuff you released was quite a while ago, and I don't know whether it's just like the quality of the MP3s. It sounds to me like you tweaked quite some things, quite subtle things, quite a lot between the first releases and then the album. And I was wondering, when do you think songs are finished?
This is
the $1,000,000 question.
Yeah, this is the question. To me, I have no idea. Thankfully, I have two people sitting on my left that can tell me when to stop.
Yeah, I think
You're ruining it. You're ruining it.
That's why you're not a solo artist.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to the fact that we can engineer the records ourselves, and there's no one telling us what to do, and there's no time limits, like you have to get out of the studio now because the producer's going home. So I think that's been really great and was definitely beneficial to us because we were such a young band and just kind of wanting to figure out what we wanted to do, not necessarily what a label wanted you to do. No offense to the nice people from the label who might be listening to me. But I guess the only problem is that you're your own editor to that, in your work, and there's like sometimes there's the temptation to just kind of keep working on something and keep changing it. But yeah, I think there's quite a difference between like the demo of Lies we put on the internet last year and what went on the record. But I think that's probably because we'd played the song live a lot as well, and that was just a like free download demo that we were like, okay, that's roughly where we're at now. We'll put that out. But
yeah, it's interesting to listen to those demos because maybe in a way you do get a sense of progression and where we were at and how we were thinking and what we were doing based on new experiences and how we were understanding each other and our creative process. I mean, that's where the only kind of tweaks and differences came in. What's the quote again? A song is finished when there's nothing else you can take away. Is that right?
Well, that's good. I like that.
I think it's,
Never heard
it's
that
a big
before.
one. It's a big one. It's like John Lennon or something.
Yeah, I'm just keen to assure everyone that we're not going to turn into the musical equivalent of George Lucas and release like special editions with extra CG chords.
Hand shot first, everybody knows, and you can't change history once you've made it.
That's it. That's it. I think when you put an album out, it doesn't really belong to you anymore. So you know,
it should be left alone.
Even though you
Although
want to tweak
hard,
it,
man, it's
you want to
hard.
tweak it.
I saw another finger in the first row here.
This guy's got a Native Instruments t-shirt.
I know, I noticed that earlier. It's pretty cool.
Hello.
Hi, nice t-shirt.
Special question to Martin.
Yes.
I'm also a machine user.
Ah.
Did you plan to upgrade to Machine Studio in the future for maybe better live performance also?
You know, we use the machine hardware. It's really reliable for just loading our own samples into it. You know, that's a lot of what I'm doing isn't really drum based. It's all cut up vocals. It's cut up, you know, maybe 5 layers of keyboards that I'd need way more hands than I have to play. And the way that we use it works well at the moment. So I really like the way that the new software looks, or the new hardware looks rather. But I'm not totally inclined to change it, just in case things start breaking. And once you have a working rig live, the trick is to leave it alone and just let it do its thing.
Like never change the running system.
Oh, that's it.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes, third row on the right.
Hi, thanks for being back in Berlin. I'm very much looking forward to seeing your show tonight.
That's nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One question about your songwriting process. What's your usual procedure? Do you start, finding some words and then making the music around it, or do you have a kind of melody and then add some words later on? What's your general approach to that?
Normally, we start with like a chord sequence or a new sound or a sample or something like that, and we'll get an instrumental sketch of a song, and then we put on a vocal melody, and then the lyrics are on last. And it's never a case that someone comes in with a completed song and is like, here, let's arrange this.
Yeah.
It's always stuff that's thought of like in the studio when we're writing as a team.
Yeah. Crucially, we're not a band that will ever kind of write songs on the guitar, you know, and it works for so many people. Certainly doesn't really work for me, because when you use electronics as a basis, as a starting point, as a tipping off point for an idea, it takes your brain to unique places, you know, in terms of melody, in terms of rhythm, whereas when you play the guitar, it always sounds the same, or you play the piano, it never, you know, the sound never changes, and you can only do as much as you're capable of with your fingers. And for some people, they're incredible guitar players, incredible pianists, and they can keep on writing unique stuff forever. But I think it's very interesting to have as many different sounds and different ideas as the beginnings of a song as is possible. It can get expensive though.
Buy new
you're like,
equipment.
oh, I need to buy new equipment to write a new song.
It's a good excuse anyway.
Right, right.
I mean, I guess it depends also what you're used to and where your comfort zone is. Like, I don't know, in the past I played a lot of guitar, and not using the guitar as Martin says, as a starting point for new material makes you think differently. It forces your brain to think outside the kind of basic chord sequences that you would normally fall back into. And imagine it's this, you know, it's just good to shake it up and keep it fresh and interesting. So
yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of technical questions here. Another question. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Let's say, like, if you guys are chosen to be one of the bands who make soundtrack for Star Wars Episode 7, what kind of music will you guys put for soundtrack anyway? Just wondering.
Oh, I can't imagine Star Wars with anything other than John Williams' score under it, but
Churches with Jawa vocals.
Yeah, we probably just rip off John Williams on keyboards.
Remember my dad once had a keyboard that plays, you know, like bossa nova rhythms and stuff like that. And I remember walking into the living room once, and he had a bossa nova rhythm on his keyboard, and he was playing the Star Wars theme in completely the wrong time signature. And I was like, "What are you doing?"
How did you end up getting into music? That would have scarred
I
me.
know. But yeah, I'll never let him forget it.
Laura, did you say that we should put Jawa vocals on it?
Yeah, just do like churches music, but with like a Jawa vocal on top instead.
I feel like that could be a path that we
Could be a remix.
Lauren does a great Jawa.
Guest singer.
Thank you.
Ultimately, it would have to be no orchestra and right down to some gritty electronics, like some 70s, 80s horror.
It wouldn't work in Star Wars though.
The kind of movie
Depends
that
what the plot
tripping,
is.
man. You're tripping.
the kind of film that couldn't afford like a massive orchestral score. Remember when they had to use keyboards? We just used keyboards because that was the right
The
thing to do.
original Star Wars was quite a low budget film. Just saying.
That theme, that's $1 million theme.
I
come
know,
on.
I know.
There's no way Big JW was getting, you know, a small packet.
You have to think about it.
He was a big name at the time, right?
Well, you know.
We do have, I think, time for one or two more questions. Maybe one from the left side there. I never saw anyone lifting up a finger here. On the right. Yeah, you first. Sorry about that.
Hey, I saw you in Dessau. It was a nice show. And I noticed that when you're performing, you're very on your own. And there's a bad habit of German audience that they clap the full beat all the songs. Did you notice this? Is this annoying for you?
No, I don't think it's annoying at all. Like, I think, yeah, it's always a strange sensation when that happens. Because, like, I guess that's kind of what we were touching on earlier, that it's interesting to go different places and see how different countries and cultures respond. The song Science and Vision, German people always clap along to that song.
do.
British people don't care. They're just like, the song's fine, it's an album track, get it done. And then they, like, you know, and then no one really responds. Well, maybe they're enjoying it, but they don't. It's not like there's not a lot of clapping in that when we play it at home.
You know, we are in the home of electronic music.
This is true. So you guys
You guys know what to do tonight.
Yeah, you guys know your electronic music.
But what is that? Does that come from like kind of Schlager tradition or like folk tradition?
Damn.
I love it. Right. That's great.
But on
Oh. I don't know. Well, I guess also we play with in-ear monitors, so yeah, we can't, to an extent you're isolated from the crowd sound, so the clapping is not distracting or anything. It's just nice. It's nice, I think.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your questions, for being here, and first of all, thank you guys for being here, Ian, Martin.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks. Yeah.
Lauren, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Chvrches, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. I think we feel quite relieved that after all those months of working on it, that we finally managed to get it complete and out, and so far it seems that people don't hate it, so that's a good thing. But yeah, it's funny, a lot of people always ask us about the pressure, how do you feel about the pressure of this and that. I think we've managed to be quite good in shielding ourselves from that so far, and just like concentrating on the work that needs to be done, you know, whether making the album or like being a better live band, or, you know, it hasn't really impacted on us so far, which I'm really glad to say.
Yeah, I mean, hype's a funny word, isn't it? Like, I don't know if we really subscribe to that idea. It's like Ian's saying, all that we've done for the last 9 months, the last year, whatever, is stay and maintain focus on what we're doing in the day-to-day of being the band, and that's what is important. I think the best thing about having the album out now is that finally we're able to be judged on a full-length record, which is how I feel all bands should be judged ultimately. And we are really...
I must have really mispronounced everything. And then when I was like, because I tried to say like, good evening, this is where we're from, and I was like, that didn't work. So I'll just go for the I don't speak Flemish phrase, and they were like, oh, good.
Oh, anyway, you don't have to speak German fluent, because you're from Scotland, and you just recorded an album, The Bones of What You Believe, which came out in August, I think, here in Germany, or September, okay. Yeah, it was a pretty rapid career, if I could say so. I think The Lies, your first single, came out in sometimes early 2012.
May 2012.
Yeah, May 2012, and you had the Recover EP, and from there on everything started, and the hype started, and everyone was saying like, this is one of the bands you need to hear in 2013. So after all those months with all the hype, and now your record finally putting out, how does it feel? Do you now feel like more pressure because you need to fulfill the expectations now, or do you feel like relief, saying, well, it's out, everything's cool now?
I think audiences react in different ways to shows, and yeah, I think the German crowd is a really special one for us. It's good.
And you have a special crowd here, not for the concert, but only for seeing you now. Lauren, I read you do speak some words German, is that true?
I speak a bit, but I learned it at school, so it's mainly phrases like, where is the train station? At the weekend, I went for a Startbummel and things like that, which is not helpful there. So I don't know any technical musical terms or any lingo that would relate to that, so it's not that helpful.
Actually, you've worked out how to say, I speak a little German, but it's really bad on stage.
But that's helpful, because you can then apologize in advance rather than just speaking English automatically, because I think that's a bit rude.
Lauren actually speaks a lot better German than she lets on.
Yeah.
Just saying.
If people speak slowly to me, then I can understand, but if they're going like really fast with like Berlin slang, I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know what you're saying.
Actually, one time Lauren fooled a German taxi driver into thinking that she was German, and he started shouting at us because we had asked for a really short fare.
Yeah, we
just started shouting at Lauren in German.
We were in a hotel, and the lady at the desk was like, oh yeah, that's quite far, you should get a cab. So we got in and gave the instructions, and then then we got told off. I was like, I don't know quite what he's saying, but I think we should get out. It was the GSL, I was like, get back out, it's embarrassing. So never mind.
Okay, but you do not prepare special greetings for every city in German or in wherever you play?
No, well, we try, like like when we're playing a lot of summer festivals in different places, Google Translate helps, because then you can get basic phrases, but then sometimes it translates everything really literally, and what you're saying makes no sense. But I think, you could be like, I don't speak this language, and this is what I think I was supposed to be saying. Yeah. There was only one time where I think I tried to speak Flemish, and it just...
Dead.
I think...
And from now on, I do have the honor, first of all, to introduce you to the band who you'll all be waiting for now, which is Chvrches from Scotland. Please welcome on stage with me Lauren Maybury, Ian Cook, and Martin Doherty. Martin, nice to meet you. Hi, Lauren. Hi. Welcome to the Apple Store.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So it's not your first day in Germany of the tour. You've been to Munich yesterday, I think Cologne the day before.
That's right, yeah.
How was that?
Actually, Cologne was one of my favourite shows of the year, I would say. It's pretty crazy.
Why?
Just audience reaction, the venue is great, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Pretty much different playing shows, the audience different here to Scotland and England?
I think it kind of varies where you go, like the different audience.